Nevada regulators ruling that daily fantasy sports websites will be treated like all other gambling entities within the state. The result is that sites like DraftKings and FanDuel have been ordered to cease operations in the state of Nevada until they are granted gambling licenses. Joining us now is an expert on all of this and on the fallout of this, sports attorney Richard Roth. You're here to make sense of this for us. So what's going to happen next with this industry?
It's almost like the Star Wars movie where the walls are caving in on them. Originally, an individual named Ethan Haskell at DraftKings bet $25 and made $350,000 on a bet with FanDuel. And now what's happening is the New York State Attorney General's office looking into it. The FBI is interviewing people. Nevada has ruled that this is not skill, this is gambling. And what's happened is they've sort of turned the 2006 statute on its head. Originally in 2006, through the lobbying groups and the sports lobbying groups, they essentially convinced Congress that the fantasy sports was not gambling because you're taking a Peyton Manning or Aaron Rodgers and you're betting from week 1 to week 16. What the new companies are doing is they're saying this is daily fantasy betting. You're not going 16 weeks. You're betting on Saturday and you're winning on Sunday.
So quickly, as a very experienced sports attorney, before you go on, where do you fall in this? Is it skill-based or is it just gambling?
You know, it's interesting. I've argued both, but as an attorney I have to argue both. But it really has become gambling because now you're not going a whole season. You're betting on one day, and it's no different than horse racing or any other form of gambling, and you're betting the odds. And so what's happening is Nevada's now shut them down. 5 other states have shut them down. You have Congress asking for an inquiry, and this all came for one reason: they didn't regulate themselves. If you turn on Fox Sports, you turn on any television, any sports show, you will see these companies advertising all day long. Apparently, once every minute and a half, there's an ad. And by getting so big and pumping hundreds of millions of dollars in this company without regulating themselves, it could very well be the death.
So, Richard, you live in some of the states perhaps that are shutting it down. You've got a balance in your account. What do you do?
Well, you can get your money out, but you're not gambling. You're not gambling in Louisiana,
Do you
Montana.
think they should take it out, though? I mean, that's the question. I'll admit it. I took some money out last night. Because I had some, and I'm in Illinois. I mean, that's where I live. Okay. But I'm worried. I mean, I'm frankly concerned that the FBI Justice Department would come in and say, or DraftKings, or say FanDuel would be like, well, we're going to freeze the assets for a little while we get this straightened out. Do you think there's liquidity issue?
The answer is there could be, but unless you're an insider, unless you're an employee or an avid bettor on this sport, then you really don't have any concern. Frankly, we'll see where it plays out, but you have everyone from Congress to the Senate to the states to the Attorney General's office, now Las Vegas, coming in on them. So it's crazy what's going on.
How does it move forward? Do you think that the individual states start banning this fantasy sports gambling, if you will, or is there any way for these two companies to make changes to how they operate that could take some of the heat off of them?
Right. 2 questions. So they're banning. Nevada did not ban fantasy sports. It banned daily sports. It banned these companies. If you want to do a whole season, you can still do it. So I think that's going to turn that way. The irony is that we're allowing for gambling in every other state. We're sort of in a trend of opening gambling. Yet this is becoming. The answer is yes. I think the states are going to start one by one saying if you want to allow it, you have to apply for it and get a license.
Right. I think the NFL actually opposes what New Jersey's trying to do with sports betting, but is okay with what FanDuel and DraftKings do, which is the irony of all ironies.
There's a whole irony here because every state is trying to get more revenues and they're bringing in more gambling and they're allowing for casinos, and yet
they're to blame. They're to blame. They didn't get ahead of this. They were getting bigger. They were getting more money, and they didn't regulate.
They exploded. They were like a volcano. Literally overnight, you've seen them explode, and they didn't regulate themselves.
Is there anything they could do at this point? I mean, somebody's suggesting could they move their operations or their headquarters overseas?
The answer is it's a little too late because now with everyone looking at them, what do? They've already announced publicly they're not having their employees bet anymore. But let's be serious. Who works at these companies? These guys are people generally men who bet on sports. So it's going to be very hard. They can try to regulate themselves, but as I said, the walls are starting to come in on them.
All right, Richard Roth, thank you for your expertise on that. Everybody's going to be watching that story.